You asked me a long time ago if I knew about the deeds to the land near water, Canal Street. Remember that conversation up there? Okay. 1853. The town water.
All right, let's get started.
The Middlesex Canal.
All right, I'd like to call this March 12th, 2020 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Tonight we'll be following the published and posted agenda. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have a set from March 5th, 2020. Did everybody have a chance to review them?
Yes,
I did not.
Okay.
I did.
I read them.
Okay. So we only have 3 here of the people that attended that have had a review, so I say we push it off to the next.
Yep.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a review of warrant Article 7, air quality studies. And with us is Jerry Hall.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Staying away from the virus. Staying away from her.
You're the virus now, apparently.
Don't squish closer to me. Okay, go home and watch it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to present our rationale for an air quality study. Last October, just before town meeting, the Board of Health issued a letter to the Planning Board in opposition to Article 23, the senior housing overlay, declaring areas near an asphalt plant to be hazardous to certain population segments. We, the neighbors of such plants, went to the Board of Health seeking specific answers as to how dangerous and at what distances. We asked for scientific studies to back up their claims. They had none. We then asked if they would conduct some. We were told it was beyond their scope and funding. We'd like answers to our health and safety questions raised by the Board of Health. We need more than their anecdotal evidence cited in their letter to the Planning Board. We certainly need more information than the ad that raised the level of hysteria in ad that accused the Planning Board of malfeasance from the October 18th, 2019 Action Unlimited. As a measure of the credibility of that advertisement, remember, malfeasance is a specific legal term for a premeditated crime committed by a public official. Quite a charge for someone who's not had the courage of their convictions to sign their ad, which, by the way, was also a last-minute interjection into an 18-month rezoning discussion. It's regrettable that the Board of Health raised the issue at the 11th hour before a town meeting, an act which preempted a calm analysis of the issue. The Westford study, and it's a big one, which is referred to as the Health Risk Assessment Report 2009. This is the study that was accepted by the Massachusetts Supreme Court as the basis for granting the Westford plant an operating permit. This was dismissed out of hand by the Board of Health as being only one study and a study that relied on modeling of similar plants. Now, scientific rigor demands that an experiment be repeatable, and we therefore call for a second study to validate or dismiss the findings of the Westford study. We also call for a study of the Oak Street plant neighborhood to determine its health and safety. These studies would eliminate the modeling objections of the Board of Health. Now, there are 3 large fiscal considerations in this undertaking. The moderate cost of the actual study, and I'll get into cost estimates in a minute. The fiscal hit to the town and the residents in terms of property values when an official body of the town determines the neighborhoods are hazardous. And the fiscal exposure to the town of lawsuits emanating from residents in low-income housing near the Oak Street plant, claiming that the town is somehow culpable in their deteriorating health by subsidizing low-income housing in the area. Now, I was given a ballpark figure of $50,000 for studies by 2 independent Boston environmental-based firms who normally conduct such studies for industrial clients. They'd like to keep us at arm's length. I think it's unusual for a town or person-sponsored group to be hoping that it comes out healthy and not trying to shut down a plant. Since then, the Assistant Town Manager, Mike McCall, has secured a copy of the Wesser report, which I can send to you, and we'll soon have studies conducted by both Newport Material for their plant and for Aggregate Industries for their facility. I'd like to thank Mike McCall and the Board of Selectmen for helping us get those studies. Mr. McCall has also filed a Freedom of Information request with the state and federal authorities for any and all environmental studies conducted on these two neighborhoods. These studies can help us better define the scope of what we would do in our study. And by the way, the EPA has been telling Mr. McCall, we'll get to you. He tried to get it expedited. So much for professional courtesy.
I saw the Board of Selectmen meeting where it was discussed, yeah.
Terrible. Now, $50,000 may seem like an exorbitant sum, but let's put that into perspective by noting that the town of Chelmsford is now awarding two separate $75,000 grants to jumpstart two restaurants down in the 129 area. We're also spending $89,000 for pickleball courts at Varney Playground. Now, of your $141 million budget, this would work out to about 0.035%. Now, spending $50,000 to preserve property values, insulate the town from lawsuits, and to ensure people's health and safety strikes me as money well spent. The town, through its Board of Health, has opened this can of worms. It's only fair that the town correct the problem. Thank you. If anybody would like those reports,
You believe you sent them to me, I
send
can
them to you.
forward them along, yep.
If anybody in the audience, my email is jerrythall, that's Jerry with a G, T as in Thomas, jerrythall, Comcast.net. I'm happy to send anything to you.
Anybody have any questions?
Ooh, I got off easy.
You did.
Good luck, you guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, people.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we have a review of the fiscal year 21 budget for the Veterans Agent. And with us is Regina Jackson, the Veterans Agent.
Hi,
Hi. Good evening.
good evening. Thank you for having me here. The budget, the fiscal year 21 veterans budget that is requested is basically pretty much the same as last year, but with one additional request that I have submitted as a supplemental budget request in the back page. And the request is to add an assistant veterans agent position to the office. And if we, let's start at the beginning, as far as what's going on now with the veterans, the budget for fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021. As far as the money that is budgeted for the veteran services really falls under the cash and materials grants for veterans benefits, the $145,000. That is the benefit pool of money that is used to pay out to our veterans under the Chapter 115 program, which is a short-term, temporary public assistance program run by the state in conjunctions with the city and town. And what we do is we assist any veterans and/or family members with surviving spouses with sometimes a cash material grant and a lot of times with reimbursement for approved medical expenses. And the way the program is run, that we assist the veterans and the eligible members, and then the state will reimburse the town 75% of everything that we pay out that is authorized, and we don't pay out anything that is not authorized. So the $145,000, or better example, the $109,000 that we actually paid out in fiscal year 2019, we would get $77,000 back, and we get that back on a quarterly basis. So the rationale behind my request to add a position to the office really falls under just that the case management for the office is actually requires it. I just think that it totally justified to have another person working with me on a part-time basis for, basically for case management. Not so much, just paperwork and phone, for actually case management with the veterans and/or the eligible community members that can fall under this program. Now, Chapter 115 is probably 50% of what I do. The other half is, or sometimes it's the other half, and the other half, and the other half is federal veterans benefits. And they fall under pension and compensation, and then they fall under health care benefits. So the snapshot that I highlighted on the presentation here is that the total of VA benefits that go into a community, they do add them up and give that information up periodically. And for Chelmsford and North Chelmsford, because we're two different zip codes, obviously, and the total for the last fiscal year that was counted was $7,548,000 a year. That comes in, and you don't see that, of course, because it comes into different community members that you may or may not know is a veteran or getting benefits, or it's none of anyone's business, really. But the reason why I wanted to highlight that is, a good chunk of that money is because I do the claims. And, and there's only so many claims you can do, but you do as many as you can, because the VA federal benefits are the most important benefits to get a veteran and/or a surviving spouse. So, do you have any questions?
Have any questions?
How many, did you say, I'm sorry, forgive me, how many hours a week the part-time
Well,
person?
I'm requesting 24. Oh, and the back sheet there, that was just the state, the back sheet was the guide for establishing the staffing requirements. So I wasn't really sure where, is Chelmsford really 35, or is it above 35,000? What is the real
Well, we'll find out.
population? I don't know. Oh, with the count.
Did
Oh,
everybody
right.
return their census forms?
Well, the minimum staffing requirements or guidelines for us, even if we were 20 to 35, so it's one full-time, that's me, and then they have one full-time clerical. But that's not what I'm requesting. I'm requesting a part-time agent or part-time assistant. That's the request.
Okay.
And the part-time is not included in the budget right now.
Correct. I put it. It's on the supplemental, the back page.
Yep.
So I thought that was what
So
you're
it's
supposed to do.
not in the budget that we were given?
It's in this. I don't know.
Or
Is it?
in the?
No. Okay, so then it's not. So it's on the page prior to that as a supplemental request.
Anyone have any further questions? Pretty succinct.
So are you saying that there are services or needs not being met today?
No, I'm saying that I could, or we could maintain the level of services, and we could probably reach out to more people who may be eligible, that they don't even know they may be eligible. But, programs change, requirements change, the VA's always changing, their eligibility, and when things change, you can reach out and,
You also have veterans who have a certain level of support now, who if their cases were reviewed might get more.
oh yeah, you can always go back, if your circumstances change, if you have a disability rating and your disability deteriorates, it's up to you, or up to the veteran, to always go back to the VA and ask for additional.
But you help them with that, right?
Oh yeah, I can help with that.
But currently,
I don't
you're,
understand why this just doesn't go into the budget. We haven't approved the budgets yet. Why does it have to be supplemental?
well, because basically, the way the process works is that the department heads meet with John and meet with Paul and go through on the requests and review the budget. And in this instance, it's something that wasn't included in the budget that's provided by the town. However, this is a request that's being made by a department head of this department. So it's a need that she has recognized that's not currently supported by the proposed budget, essentially. That's, I don't know how else to explain it.
I don't choose to argue with you about it, but we haven't approved the budget yet, so I don't understand why it doesn't just go into the budget, or unless you're saying that it's not supported.
It's not budgeted for currently, is what we're saying. It's not budgeted for. We're not saying that, we can certainly argue when we give recommendations about the merits of adding it or asking for it to be added, but currently it's not in the proposed budget. It's being asked, so what we have here is a department head that's saying this is a recognized need, it was discussed, it was not provided for in the budget, proposed budget, because, for whatever reason, and she's presenting that to us as something that's a recognized need that she's presenting to us that's not currently there. And we can certainly vote on and discuss that when we review it. That answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
From a process standpoint, when we go, like, say we go to and approve the budget, because the town's presenting $1 amount as a budget, what is the process to, like, if we deem that we wanted to add it, for instance, what would be the process?
I think there would have to be an amendment proposed,
Okay.
because the warrant has already been issued.
Okay.
The budget is part of the warrant, one of the warrant articles. An amendment could be made on the floor of town meeting to increase from whatever source that might be available to make a change, either plus or minus. It's not like the school budget where it's an up or down vote. There could be an amendment made to this,
Okay,
if the body so chooses.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the work you do. All right. Up next is a big chunk of the evening, or at least of the agenda. We have the review of the fiscal year budget. Actually, it says 20 as a typo. 21 budget for the Department of Public Works, Solid Waste, Sewer, Storm, and Water, Public Facilities Department, and we'll keep you up here for the many warrant articles associated with those departments. So with us tonight, we have Gary Persichetti, the Director of Public Works, and Steve Yonley, the Assistant Director of the Department of Public Works.
Good evening, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We'll let you choose what we start first, because I know my order's not the same as yours, and we'll just come up to where you are.
Well, I left it open for the department budgets and then warrant articles after.
Well, I meant which one you
Doesn't
showed
matter.
first, okay. So you want to just start with the two enterprises and do those?
that's fine.
Sure. All right, so you want to start with stormwater, and then we'll do sewer enterprise, and then continue on from there?
So the stormwater enterprise budget presented this year is kind of the final step in kind of the three-step process that we've gone with. This budget will bring us to what was originally proposed at town meeting a few years ago. It's the budget that was basically cut in half on town meeting floor. This brings us up to the staffing levels that were presented a couple of years ago, and levels for projects. And then there's also some additional equipment purchases with this budget, again, as originally proposed a couple of years ago. This budget does include an increase in the rate. The residential rate, as we calculated, finished calculating this morning, will jump from the $40 annually to $60 annually. And then basically, that's a 50% increase. And then the commercial and apartment complex rate has an increase of 40%, basically across the board. Those numbers are actually a little less than what was proposed a couple of years ago in that tiered system. If you remember, the residential rate was 65, so we're coming in a few dollars cheaper. And a lot of the tiers on the commercial rate is anywhere from a few hundred to a couple $1,000s less than what was proposed a couple of years ago. So with that, this budget adds the 3 more labor positions, again, as proposed a few years ago, adds the purchase of a catch basin cleaner truck to be operated by staff at a price of $200,000 for that truck. Currently, the justification for that truck is we're gonna, based on current bids for outsourcing catch basin cleaning, current bid is a little over $23 a catch basin. Obviously, there's 4,500 roughly catch basins in town. Simple math, in a couple of years, I can pay for the truck, as opposed to contracting it out. And then with the inspections we have to do with the EPA permit, basically how we operated last summer, cleaning the catch basins, was we had the contractors in, couple trucks, and I had to have a couple guys chasing the trucks around town, doing a pre-inspection and then a post-inspection, so before the structure was cleaned and then after the structure was cleaned, because we have to document each structure, obviously 4,500 of them. There's a lot of chasing each other around up and down the streets. So we have our own vehicle. I can have 2 guys. I can have 1 guy cleaning the basin, 1 guy doing the inspection. We're on to the next one. Much more efficient operation, as opposed to just chasing each other up and down the street, like I say. The other vehicle is the Vector truck that was proposed a couple of years ago. Vehicle can be used for, again, we can use that to clean catch basins, we can clean culverts with it, clean around some stream beds right from the street. With a few links of extension hose, we can get to structures that are out in the woods without having to drive machinery across people's yards. We can do hydro excavation with it, as opposed to having to dig a hole, potential for damaging utilities. I know the Center Water District does that with their Vector truck. Very useful piece of equipment. So that's about it for stormwater. If there's any questions, yes?
And so when you do get a chance, if you could email us the
rates?
Email us the sheets, because we.
Oh, the 2 B sheets?
No, yeah, all the information.
The whole thing?
Yep, the whole
Oh,
thing.
sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
Absolutely.
So the only other thing to add to stormwater is, as you know, based on capital, there's a 50,000 fee in here for the flyover, and they'll also
Oh, yes,
show the
yes,
same
yes.
thing into the sewer enterprise.
Yes, because through I had proposed 150,000 at capital planning for a new flyover for the GIS system. It was decided to split it kind of 3 ways. So there's 50,000 in the town capital, 50,000 sewer capital, 50,000 stormwater capital.
Okay.
Sewer enterprise. Look at sewer enterprise, you'll see that it's basically close to being totally level funded with just the increases in salaries and a couple of line items. There's quite an increase in the electricity line item. And the reason for that is the Bolton Solar charges. It's the way that we're charged from the 5 megawatts that's purchased from there, and there's also a $13,000 charge from National Grid, so that's what's brought that one line item up. And then, as we said, if you look at the 70,000, then outlay that 50,000 is a flyover, and the 20 is the usual for the SCADA system, which manages all 41 pump stations.
Okay.
Next up would be admin engineering. Again, a budget that's pretty level funded. The decrease in the admin line item is Steve Servin, who was the safety specialist, is now in the budget of the town managers, not in ours anymore, so there's the decrease there. And basically, everything's the same, there's a couple of dollars in here more for gasoline and car repairs based on just age of stuff, and the last things we've gotten for gas from Chief Spinney.
Yeah, when the chief was in, he mentioned that there was an increase, an anticipated increase in the gas costs.
So we're just carrying for that.
Yeah.
Highway division, basically the same thing. There's not huge increases within this budget.
Do you have any extra copies? Because I didn't get any of these, either electronically
Get
or,
them electronically either.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
So that's why I mentioned to Stevens having to email me those,
I
yeah.
was just, I was like just checking my email to see if I missed
I
it.
thought you had gotten these. I will get them out immediately.
So tell us what we should look at.
That's what he's been doing, yeah. Yeah.
Highlighting the areas that have changed.
I know, I'm just joking, I know you are.
Which we usually do, so. And as I said, the highway one does not have a lot of movement in it. There's some items have gone down, basically the same. The overall budget is like a minus 12.12%. Street lighting has no changes to it. We're carrying the same $80,000 that we have. It seems to be working ever since the lights went in.
The changeover to the
LEDs,
LEDs.
yep.
Yep.
The waste collection, I hate to say, is kind of self-explanatory. It's just the basis of the fact that recycling is not bringing in the money. Increases have gotten more. Transfer stations are either closing or slowing up because of ones that have closed, so you're in line longer. And we continue to work with the two outfits, Covanta, to try to get it better for us in a few other towns, and right now this is the best deal that's on the street. So I really honestly don't know what else to say about it. It's,
There really isn't any plan.
no,
No.
no, there isn't.
A little
And,
concerning.
But like I said, it's one that we are working and trying to
Yeah.
find ways with them and see what can happen. I believe there's a conference call next week just to see as well.
Okay.
We continue to. The Parks Division, another very simple budget. In the Parks Division, basically, there's still the 1.5 men, and then there's a couple of increases within it. Vehicle maintenance being the biggest one. We have passed on the truck again, as you know, at capital this time, so we're expecting to do some work that we would have not done if we were to replace the truck. So there's your increase there. Other than that, it's quite level. The $16,000 that was in there in 2020 is out because that was an outlay for a new mower. So once the purchase was made, it doesn't get continued.
How's that working out?
Great.
Very nice.
Yep. It's nice to have the old ones as a backup if, you know, if you get out or it has to go in the shop,
I
so.
have a copy of any of those. They wouldn't send out to anybody.
Public buildings. Again, public buildings is another one that is quite level funded. One of the changes into this is we now carry a $8,800 charge for Voltrek. That's the charging units for electric cars, and that's in that budget. There's a small increase to the cleaning contract. That's for two reasons. One, it's the annual percentage that it goes up, and the other is we've added the offices that were added downstairs to the contract. And that's basically it there. And then we go to the Old North and the Center for Yachts. We've been carrying $30,000 since those buildings have opened, and we need to up that by $10,000 to $40,000. The current payments that we're making on the items that we've always continued to do, which is elevator inspections and repairs. We do all our fire extinguishers in there, all the sprinkler testing. And one of the issues that I'm gonna bring up again when we hit the municipal facilities one is the state decided to put in pre-elevator inspections. It's being done for two reasons. One, growth is continuing throughout Massachusetts, which means that more new elevators are coming online. Inspectors are not growing. So what they've come out with is a pre-inspection where it's our job to bring in our alarm company, our elevator company, and take it to an inspection like we would if a state inspector was there prior to him coming, so that they would hope to go to like an 80 to 85% pass rate. So the problem with that is it's a cost to us. So that reflects a little bit here, and I'll explain a little more when we get to the other budget, because it affects that one a lot more than this one. So that brings us to municipal facilities. So I have a few categories with that I think are extremely important, so I'll take you through them. And they start off with, raising the building maintenance line, okay, by 50,000, and that's a combination, as I said, of the stuff that's going around from, this is the state inspector's letter that came out, and I have a couple of charts here. I have one here that shows a 3-year of the pre-elevator test based on what needed in each year. The current year is 24,000, next year is 16,008, and 2022 will be 27,600.
Can we pass that around?
Surely,
Yeah.
surely
Thank
can.
you.
Thank you.
That lists all our elevators, and it tells you what's going on there. The other line item is, if you've not met with Chief Ryan yet, or if you have.
We have.
They're doing away with the red YAUC that does the master boxes throughout the entire town, which means all buildings that use that system currently have to go to a different system, which means your own monitoring. So we've gotten some quotes, and the quote is very rough, but what it is any building I have to change is a initial price of $400 per building. It could be even more depending on what the runs are that they have to make. And then it's a $45 per month per building charge to monitor. So that means anytime an alarm goes out, whether it's a fire alarm or an intrusion alarm, they get called, they call the fire, that's how it goes. So a rough estimate between the two is $27,500 for that line item. And then the last line item is with the age of the buildings, and I know I say this every year, but we have two things going on. We continue to upgrade. We just finished an entire upgrade of the energy management system at the police station. So now it's comparable to the rest of the buildings, and we can do just about anything we need to from almost anywhere.
Yeah. Chief Spinney mentioned that it's been a good improvement.
The problem with that is it costs more to keep it up.
Of course.
And at the same time, we're fighting the older equipment that has not been changed, which is costing us more to take care of. So it's a target that I wish I could say is one that we can do. And as you all know, we're gonna go for the 3rd year in a row to try to get MSBA money for a new school. I don't see much success again because we do a lot of maintenance and there are towns that are in worse shape. So I think that's what you're dealing with.
The general theory is that it pays not to maintain.
Yeah. But
Yeah. Well.
it doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't. When you're trying to win the award.
Yeah, no, I mean, we go through many school years and many things in all these buildings and the library with very little issues, and it's nice to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't miss anything, right?
No.
No.
Any questions?
But I once again just want to apologize that we did not get that sent out.
I didn't remind you about it. So, yeah.
You can call if you have any questions, or send me an email. I'll be more than happy to answer.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for all you do.
Next, we have a review of warrant Article 10, the South Row School partial roof replacement and supplemental appropriation.
We are working with MSBA now. Jacobs is the OPM, and Russo Bar is the architect on the project. We've gone a little bit off of the standard MSBA filing system by already bidding out the roof to get a price on it, because we were kind of deciding whether we were going to stay in their program or come out of it. The prices came in for the roof, so we have a roof contractor ready to go. Very acceptable bid, which will work fine for us. But after we did the numbers out, it made sense to stay in. The total cost listed is $516. The total reimbursement is $248 870, I believe, back to the town. The thought is that we will use most of that, not all of it, because they put contingencies in there that right now it doesn't look like we should hit, over and above what we've already bid. So, but the issue is you have to borrow the entire amount. It's the only way you get in a program, whether you use it or not.
So what's, just remind me, what's the supplemental appropriation amount?
116, I think it's 116, 280 or 380
Okay.
that we're looking for, because we asked for 400 originally.
Originally, yeah.
So
Why were you considering not staying in? What was?
The best way I can explain it is the next project, I think we told you last year that we would probably bring forward be the boilers at the high school. Well, we brought in Airco, which is the current vendor of the boilers. We looked at what a one-for-one swap out is. By the time you pay MSBA, which has you use a architect and then a OPM, a owner's project manager, it raises the cost too much, and that's a project that just would not benefit us one bit. I mean, even different than this one. If this was an entire roof at South Row, we would have never even considered looking looking this other way. But the issue is when you start in with MSBA, you're indebted to them to at least a certain point. So we expensed X amount of dollars with the architect and X amount with the OPM. So when you take those charges and then you add them to what the roof price was and what you had going forward, to back out, you would have gained less because you wouldn't have the services of people and you wouldn't have got the money back. So it made sense in this instance to stay in and go full.
It's 116, 646.
Thank you.
646, thanks, Paul. Okay, perfect. Going on to Article 13, the Myland Avenue Sewer Pump Station reconstruction.
Yep, so if you remember back in the fall, we took 500 and some odd $1,000 out of sewer free cash to fund upgrades at the Weed Street Pump Station, Lord and Vincent Road Pump Station, and then $25,000 for some engineering design work for the Myland Ave Pump Station. So that work has been ongoing. We're looking at a number of $350,000 for the reconstruction of the Myland Ave Pump Station. That'll be either a concrete or block enclosure down there, just because it's
wet, right?
damp location, as opposed to kind of the more traditional shed-type things we've been building recently, so that'll be a different type of structure. That was the need for the engineering study. But that's approaching its conclusion, so we'll be looking for maybe construction this summer, if approved. And that 350 comes out of the free cash as well.
Got it. Okay. Article 16, Chelmsford Forum Ice Chiller Refrigeration System Replacement.
I have some news I could share with you. The problem I'm having is I'm having a little bit of an issue with the people running the rink right now and calling back. We had looked originally with a TecoGen chilling system, which the estimate on that's about $750,000. So there was a look at an electric motor system for that, and I have been calling for 5 to 7 days, even longer, but lately every minute, a couple of times a day to try to put something together so I can give Paul a more solid number and know which way we're going. So the worst case is $750,000 if we stay with the TecoGens. The plant is original to the building. They are cat motors, which have got us all this life, because that's the way they're built. But now it's a matter of two things. One of the two seems to be down quite often because of the age, and the second one is parts are becoming better than impossible.
So where would so whichever one you go, where is the funding for that? Is that like you're borrowing for that, or where's?
I think it would have to be.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm
a
just.
combination. I don't know if there's a little,
Borrowing
there's,
and paid, debt service paid off through the enterprise fund.
Yeah, okay.
Not the tax level.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Article 26, Ledge Road and Oak Hill Road easements for roadway purposes.
So that is sort of driven by a request from the Board of Selectmen to potentially look at a school bus turnaround, or I guess an emergency turnaround, if you will, towards the end of Ledge Road, due to the traffic increase up there. This will allow the school bus to come down Ledge Road, which is a pretty narrow road, and then basically the idea is to build a cul-de-sac at the end of Ledge Road, close to where Oak Hill Road splits off to the left. Oak Hill Road is just a small road, only 3 houses on it. It would impact one property owner at 75 Ledge Road, potentially, to basically, like I say, construct a cul-de-sac. My construction estimate on it was $62,500. I would need to get appraisal done of the property, which I have not done at this point. So I do not know what the cost of the easement would be. The easement is approximately 7,700 square feet. So I don't even want to.
Don't want to think about it?
Don't even want to throw a dart at what it would cost, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
That's 7,700 of that one.
The one
parcel?
property owner,
Yeah,
correct.
it's one property, yeah.
Like roughly how big is that total parcel?
It's a few acres. I forget off the top of my head. It's more than a couple acres.
So is it the one that's north of Ledge Road, if you're looking at a map? I'm trying to just
So
picture.
when you look at the end of Ledge Road, Ledge Road kind of forks, and it
Yeah.
goes up the hill this way. It's to the right-hand side.
Could you, because
Got it.
I'm not that familiar, I'm assuming this is North Chelmsford?
Yeah, Ledge Road's up off of Dunstable Road.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You don't travel up our neck of the woods?
Well, I do, but I get the primary locations, you know?
All right, well, good luck with that. Any other questions?
Okay, I just want to, so that too would be coming out of that would be an enterprise fund? I'm just
No.
clarifying the source of the money for all of this. Where would the 62,500 plus whatever, what's the source of the? Am I asking a foolish question?
No.
The DPW road construction
Yeah. So we could,
appropriation. So there's no separate appropriation for this project, it's out in the capital.
No, it's in the capital.
Okay, thanks.
All right. And last but not least, the Article 27, Boston Road and Concord Road easements for roadway purposes.
yep, so this is another article for easements for the traffic improvements at the Boston and Concord Road intersection down by Triangle Service Center. This project has been in Mass DOT's Transportation Improvement Project Program. Oh, that's a lot of words.
Say that 3 times fast.
So, yeah. So how those projects work, like if you're familiar down the street here at Billerica Road and Riverneck Road, that project is started. There's some utility pole relocations going on now. Actual construction should be starting next week. How these projects work is it's a 4 to 5 year process. We apply with some concept plans and conceptual estimates with DOT. If we get accepted into the program, the town funds the design and permitting of the project and all easement acquisitions, and then Mass DOT picks up the bill for construction. The Billerica Riverneck project is roughly $6 million project, construction. The Boston and Concord Road project, a little bit smaller scale. Current estimates are about $2.75 million for that intersection improvement. So the town we've brought the plans to 100%. The hope is for Mass DOT to bid the project in June or early July. So I'm in the easement acquisition process at this point. We have an appraiser on board, and that process is starting on these easements. So this warrant article would authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire those easements. Once I get the appraisals back, then obviously I start working with the property owners to acquire the easements. Any funding that would be necessary for this project, for the easement acquisitions, I have currently in current year's road capital.
So that's like Triangle gas station area, right?
Yep.
So what about the Park, is it Park Street that comes, the funny little street that comes?
Parker Road.
Parker Road?
Yep.
So would they be involved in easements? How would that intersection look? And what's
So-
the visualization?
Better?
That intersection,
Anything is better.
a lot,
Non-life threatening?
yeah, a lot smaller, I guess. If you're on Boston Road outbound towards Billerica, you can turn onto Concord Road at about, I don't know, 80 if you wanted to, probably. So it's really shrinking it up, teeing up the intersection, as
Yeah.
opposed to it coming in at a crazy angle. Parker Road kind of coming out in the middle. Sidewalk improvements, culvert improvement that carries the brook under Triangle Service Center, basically. That's all getting replaced. And that intersection is being prepped for a traffic light, but the traffic light is not being installed at this time. So all the conduit and stuff will be in the ground, handholds and all that, ready to go, because it was another one of these intersections that was just under the warrants for a traffic signal. So future conditions, it would probably warrant one, but then we wouldn't have to go dig everything back up again. So that was all planned for, and thankfully Mass DOT pays for the construction, so.
That's even better, yeah. Even better, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that intersection certainly needs an improvement. Yeah, leaving Parker Road is always fun on the truck. Yeah. All right, any other questions? All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Look at that, we've rocketed through a good portion of the agenda. Next on our agenda, we have the review of fiscal year 21 budget for the Community Preservation Fund. With us is the chair of the Community Preservation Fund Committee, Linda Prescott.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to start out saying that this is a very important year for the Community Preservation Act. We hit a big milestone in June. We'll be paying off the last of the town halls. That is $5.8 million, and I don't think it really hurt anybody here. It wasn't painful. So we're excited about that. This time of year, we always do what I call our housekeeping. And we take the money that has come in from the state and what will be coming in through the surcharges. And basically what it is open space is going to have $140,000. Historical preservation will be another $140,000. And housing will be another $140,000. The rest, except for putting money into the admin account and bringing it up to $50,000. It's pretty straightforward. This is a revolving account, and money comes and goes as it comes in through taxes. Now, we're supposed to have a better match next year. I don't know how good it's going to be now that we have our problems, but the Registry of Deeds has raised its fees for the first time in 10 years. 100% of that money is dedicated to the Preservation Fund.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, and we work with the director. We have a coalition, and these people are the ones that actually wrote the bill, do all the work with Beacon Hill, and they're trying to find to have a dedicated source out of the surplus account. Some years it's there, most years we have something, but he's trying to get it to be a guaranteed like $10 million extra, because we are acquiring more towns and cities. Almost half of the state now has the program.
Yeah, that was my next question. With the increase of other municipalities and cities adopting, especially ones in our neighborhood, I was wondering how that was affecting. But it's good to hear, although.
They're trying. It's put a drain on the matching funds.
Yeah.
Because when we first started, it was 100% match, and it's gone down. So, some years we can expect like 38%. So it is improving. I don't think it'll be as good as we anticipated this year.
Next year, maybe.
Next year it'll be better.
With all the registry fees coming with all the refinances, I'm sure.
I wonder how many people are going to refinance.
Well, who knows? Who knows?
And we only have one money request this year, and that is for restoration of the vital records.
Yeah, and for that one, I'll ask Tricia Suris, the town clerk, to come up. Yeah, sure. If we're moving into the historical vital records, I'd like you to come up, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
I wasn't sure if Linda was going to finish her whole spiel first or not.
I'll let her continue.
I was just going to tell you how,
Yep.
we're financing this, which is going to be bonded. And
Okay.
that keeps us, if, several land acquisitions comes up, we'll be able to purchase land. It doesn't stay in the market very long, so we have to be ready to move. And that has been the number one priority of the CPC since we
Okay.
started.
Excellent, all right. Well, thank you, Linda, and I will have you
Thank
stay up here while we finish the.
Because
Do you want some
you're my
cards?
partner in crime. You're my partner in crime here, Linda.
Tricia, thank you for being here, and
Thank you.
so we're reviewing now bless you. We're reviewing now the CPF preservation of historic vital records, Article 25.
Good. Well, I put up several slides here just to this is a long version of our project timeline. It actually the initiative started in 2013 by my predecessor, Honorina Maloney,
Yeah.
when she first requested an inventory of all of the permanent records and our historic records that we have in all of our archival space in the building. That original assessment came up with the condition assessment, the needs assessment of the environment, and of the condition of all the records that we have. And then quotes came in later on from there, and the assessment was well over $1 million to try to address the poor condition of some of the records that we currently have from back in the 1700s. So when I became clerk in 2017, I took up the gauntlet and decided to try to take some small bites of the apple, of several apples, because we had to break this down into 3 different categories. First, we had to deal with the environment, then we had to deal with the Digitization Project, and then we had to deal with the historic preservation of the records. Obviously, investing too much money in historic preservation without the environment being dealt with first would not be very smart. So through capital investments, we've been able to restore all of our vault spaces, improve the climate control, put in archival shelving, made some serious improvements. This is the vault that's in my office, which previously had wooden shelving, which was very detrimental to the bindings of books. Did not have any climate control in it whatsoever. It now has the AC and humidity control, as well as all of the archival shelving. The planning and zoning room. I love showing these pictures because it was very, we're quite proud of it. We could never find anything in the planning and zoning room because those files kept moving all over the place. And again, all the rolled maps were in all these white boxes stacked in corners, and we really couldn't find anything. So now we have a terrific system, still working to improve it. Our maps and all that are still being indexed on the map wall. This is what our vital records looked like in my lower level archival vault. Amazingly, that Miller Lite box has stayed in that room for God knows how long. So we needed obviously to improve that space as well. This is now what our most historic birth records are indexed now. They're in archival sleeves and archival boxes and properly indexed. No more Miller Lite box. And this was done mostly through the volunteer efforts of somebody who actually wrote the original report in 2013, who retired from the Northeast Document Conservation Center when she first came in to kind of say, all right, where do we start? And she gave me a quick education on historic document conservation. And I said, wow, would you come and volunteer for me when you retire? And she said, sure. And I said, when is that? She said, Friday. So, God bless MP. She came in and did all this for us. Even more comical is what our departmental archives looked like. And these are actually a combination of archival storage and active departmental file storage. Very difficult to access, very disorganized, poor lighting, poor ventilation. Everything about this was just a hazard, and obviously not a very good environment for our historic records. So we took it from that mess on the left to, we again, with the help of facilities, DPW, got all the environmental stuff up to date, got everything painted, new LED lighting put in, and archival shelving. So now our environments are all up to speed. We've been digitizing, but we want to continue to improve on that. So also a part of our capital plan is to have the plotter scanner in the planning zoning room and then a scanner in our archival room so that the boxes don't need to leave. We can just have somebody go search through our brand-new records database that we have. Everything is inventoried in this database. They can seek through the desktop which box, which shelf the records that they're seeking is in, and then we can just go and find it, and they can scan it right from that room up to their email, and then it's all set. So that's part of the project that we've been working on as well. And we'll continue to add to that database as records are added to that storage. So we've solved a lot of the problems that we had with our records. And now what we need to do is take all of those records that are still on these new shelving, and we need to assess the condition of them again. And then we had to come up with an estimate as to what it would cost to either just box and stabilize them if they weren't that in bad a condition, or if they were in really bad condition, what it would take to not lose that data that we have. So some of this estimate, the file storage room, the departmental storage, that estimate is about $80,000 for those volumes that are there to stabilize and box. These are the Historical Commission cabinets that are right outside my vault on the lower level that our Historical Commission uses all the time. You can see that they are not in very good shape. These are historic records of taxes, which are really important for all kinds of research. Linda can attest to that. And you can see the more they're handled, they're just going to fall apart and not be useful at all anymore. So the cost to do those two cabinets is about $200,000. And then in my vault, we've been digitizing, that's what all these numbers are for, is to help us as we send them off. We've been partnering with Boston Public Library. We send a collection every year. They digitize everything so it's searchable, and then they send them back to us. And so we want to make sure that now that they're digitized, that we can preserve the actual record. You can see on the right-hand side some of those gray boxes. Those are the ones that we've already done through the small bites of the CPC Apple. We've had 2 grants. We were able to do 4 volumes for the first 15,000 grants, and $15,000 grant, and then 6 more volumes with the $20,000 grant. And they come back all nice and clean, indexed, boxed, able to be preserved forever. But you can see that not just by the bindings, but when you open the books and you see the pages, when they get really brittle and the ink starts fading, that's when you know you're at risk of losing all of that information.
Is there, could you just go in there with regular hand, like no gloves and stuff
They
like that?
actually don't recommend gloves anymore because it makes it slippery, and if you drop the book, it's even more destructive than a little bit of oil on your fingertips. Once they're digitized, though, they'll just be boxed and stored and hopefully not have to be touched that much. And that's what we're looking to do as part of this process as well, is that once they're stabilized, then we can get them digitized. We are working with the Historical Commission. Fred Merriam has been coming in. Some of our most at-risk records that aren't necessarily our indexes on our vital records. They're not, the records itself aren't historical, but the information in it is important and we use them all the time. But because we use them every day to do our vital records research, we can't send them off to be scanned because we really do use them every day, but they are really in bad shape. Those books cost about $10,000 each to restore. So what we're trying to do is transcribe them right now with our interns, and also Fred Merriam is coming in, and he's got his camera that he brings in and is set up. It's very cool with his lights, and Linda's been turning the pages very delicately and taking the images of those indexes, so we'll have those digitally, so we don't have to send them off. And if we can get them all transcribed, then we might not necessarily even spend the money on those. But these are the ones, these are permanent records that are in my vault, and the cost of the volumes that are in my vault is another $170. So I'm asking for the Finance Committee's recommendation to support our request to not to exceed $450,000 to finish the project that was started back in 2013. And then again, these are the indexes that I was just referring to that we use every day. They are in my upstairs vault. It would have cost $100,000 just to restore those 11 volumes. So I'm kind of going to do everything else first and then see what's left and then see which ones of those records may or may not need to be restored. But you can see what the wooden shelving does to the bottom of those bindings, and It's just too many years being in inappropriate environments have really done some damage to the records. But we're here to stop that process and reverse it and protect them from this point forward. And again, we'll keep going with our digitization project. And that way they'll be accessible to the public online and protected in this building for many, many, many years to come. So does anybody have any questions about what we've done so far or what we're looking to do?
Looks like you've done an impressive job.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, hasn't it, Linda? Yeah, it's good to have people like Linda Prescott on my Public Records Advisory Committee, and Brian Herzog from the library, and John Souza, just to kind of help with the whole process.
It's an appropriate use of CPF funds.
Well, thank you very much. And it was very good timing that the North Town Hall and Center Town Hall.
She's waited.
Yeah, I did.
It's historic almost.
It is, it's historic preservation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we have a review of the fiscal year 21 budget, pay access cable, with Pete Padula is here, the Executive Director of Chelmsford Telemedia. TV time. Look at this, only 8:30.
Pete's gonna have copies, isn't he?
Oh, my God, we gotta get the look.
Thank you.
When I met with Vicky, she asked, I did a small PowerPoint, so hopefully I can plug in my computer.
I trust you.
Vicky did mention she wasn't going to be here. I think Vicky did mention she wasn't going to be able to make it. She is traveling.
Just gonna plug in mine.
Oh, sure. That's your message.
Yeah, I just need this, or it won't work. And we'll go without it. Let's see what happens. Oops, Facebook. We don't want Facebook. How about this?
Perfect.
All right. So, we'll get one copy. I'm going to call this sort of level funded with two exceptions, okay?
Okay, that's fair.
If you remember from last year, it's a guessing game with the funding for our department. Last year, I cut it by quite a lot out of a phrase that everybody's using these days, out of an abundance of caution, an overabundance of caution. And I was probably going to do the same thing this year because we're doing okay, and there's nothing wrong with putting a little extra money away if we end up with extra money. But late in the game, we have two changes, so I did add some money to our budget. Just real quick, on the note of our funding threats, the two that I've talked about in the past, the FCC rule change and the cord cutting, right now both are kind of status quo, which is really great. The FCC has not yet been enforced. They haven't taken any action. Maybe they're distracted by other things at the federal level. Cord cutting, I don't know. I think cable's gotten more competitive. I heard a youngish person, 40-year-old, say that he had got rid of his cable box and now he was paying too much, so he went back to his cable box. So, there's a competition in the marketplace. So we're in good shape, in Chelmsford at least so far. I had showed this chart to Vicky, and just gives you a visual sort of outlook of how we're doing in terms of funding. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Each bar represents a quarter. So you can see that early 2017 was kind of our peak revenues, and we're back down to where we were in 2016. It's not really a terrible thing right now because 2016 was okay. We really had some great revenues for a while, and we're sort of back down to earth, and hopefully we can just maintain. So that's my hope. Okay. All right, so one of the reasons that I added, you'll see the equipment maintenance budget went up by a significant amount. That is because our, what's called our Telview Hypercaster broadcast server, which is how we're on the air tonight, which is how we do so many things, was new, I don't have the date, 2 years ago, I think. So we're in our third year. The service contract is extremely expensive, and they have a deal if you buy it for 4 years. Last year, I didn't want to pay for it. It was just a huge chunk of money, and considering the fright we were in, I was like, well, let's just pay 1 year. But it's not a good deal to pay it yearly, as you can see. So I decided sort of late in the game to go for the 4-year discount. Basically, 30 grand for 4 years, it saves us 14 grand over those 4 years. So it makes a lot of sense. I always knew it made sense. It just, I wasn't really ready to pull the trigger. Yeah. Okay, so that's where that's why that line item goes up a lot. The other that came up is we're doing, the police department requested our building at 2 Old North Road, where we keep some of our vehicles and we use for workspace and storage. Gary's department was extremely generous. You know, you probably know we're in this Richardson Road facility, that first bay right there. Gary was able to offer us the bay right next to it there.
Oh.
Okay, which is a very cost-effective solution. So what we're going to be doing is, this is a front view, so you can see that the large door on the right is where our big giant truck is right now. This other, the door on the far left is where we would enter the facility, also Gary's people as well. But we would have another internal door on the inside. I'll show you. We're going to take over this bay, this is what it looks like on the inside. And we'll need to build a wall. It's my sort of chicken scratch of a wall, an internal wall. So if I go back, basically separating to the left of that man door, that entry door. So that when we walk in that reddish door, it's all ours. Okay, so it's secured from the rest of the DPW operations that way. So all we really need is some money to build this wall, and the estimated cost for that is about 20 grand. So that's why I raised my capital costs up to 20 grand.
Are those two bays separated?
They are, it's a little tricky. They are, that wall, that gray and white cinder block wall separates them.
It does.
Yeah, so that'll stay.
That will stay, no plan, oh, there are two
There are
doors.
two
There are
doors.
there.
There are
Okay, I
two
can see them
doors,
now,
yeah. So, and just if you're interested, that gray balcony-like thing will be coming down. It's not, it hasn't been used in a while, right?
No.
Yeah, so we're gonna,
And the 2 doors will get removed and moved out, so that they'll have access back and forth.
Perfect.
so it really worked out very well. We were going through some solutions that were very difficult to,
Yeah, I know when you identified it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was a great location, especially being so close to the high school and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this puts everything in one place and for not a lot of money, so.
Perfect.
So that, the additional 22,000 is on the outlay?
Yeah.
Outlay, yeah.
Additional, if you consider my original intention was not to raise anything, so,
Yeah.
I mean, we're still if our income stays, we're in very good shape, so I'm still in the conservative phase mindset.
Fair enough.
So, that is it. Oh, no, then the warrant article.
Well, so does anybody have any questions on the general budget for 21? Nope. Okay, warrant article 18.
Okay, yeah, didn't mean to jump the gun
No,
there.
that's okay. Chelmsford Telemedia computer servers.
Yeah, this is, it's actually dovetails with Linda and Tricia, because this is really about community preservation. We do strive to save everything we produce, every video, including, we are in a long-term project of archiving old stuff that was on tape, like all the old town meetings and all the government meetings. That's still in progress. But we create stuff at a faster rate, and we filled up our server. So not only do we put it all online, so it's saved there, everything's sort of saved on YouTube. We don't know how secure that is,
Ostensibly,
right?
yeah.
We do save it, hard copies, I don't know, files on our server back at the
local files,
ranch,
yeah.
which is also backed up. We have it in 2 locations. We filled up 30 terabytes since we began this, which I can't tell you when it was, maybe 5 years ago. So it goes pretty quickly, and we need to replace that and expand it. So we're looking at about 20 grand for that.
And what will the capacity go to at that point?
I do not have the specs now.
You don't? Okay.
So it will be bigger.
Because I guess the current videos and stuff, I'm sure are taking up a little bit more space.
Well, we do compress them,
You do
okay?
com- you
We
do
compress
compress
them
them, okay.
very, because, our philosophy is, it's mostly informational.
Mm-hmm.
If you made a beautiful Hollywood movie, you wouldn't want to ever compress it because it's gorgeous, but, no offense.
Hey, you know what? If we get a little bit more grainy, a little bit
Right,
less focused,
right.
I'm okay
So,
with that.
We're mainly concerned with the information, and so we do compress the files, and so they're not onerous, but, and this sort of caught me by surprise. We wanted to do this year, so I said, let's go and get some money out of, we do have a fair amount in our undesignated
Yeah.
fund balance, and I don't want that to keep, so let's just do it this way.
Okay.
It's something I feel comfortable going before town meeting, since it's something that, it also
We didn't
promotes
approach it
what we're
last year
doing.
as well,
Yeah.
too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that should be it.
Any other questions? Thanks, Pete.
Easy? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to our review of the budget hearing and springtime meeting warrant schedule. We've kind of soldiered through pretty quickly. We have a couple big ones left. Hold on, let me pull up my liaison list here. So, the two biggest, obviously, are the schools. And they have both targeted next week as a potential date to come in. We'll see what happens.
Those for us?
We met with Jay today. Here's copies of the budget for,
Take homes.
yeah.
I'm just gonna take mine directly from you. I'm not taking any chances.
No,
It was probably for Vicky.
Vicky.
Vicky's
For
not
Vicky.
here,
all right.
This is her stuff too, Jim.
so I don't know. Couch is gonna get that.
Actually, Pam, if I give this to you. Yeah, okay, that sounds good, thanks. All right, so we have the two school budgets, and we've done them both on the same night before in the past, and we've done them separately before in the past. This year just happens that they're both targeted next week as
Yeah,
a date to come in. As far as warrant articles are concerned, really the only ones that are not just traditional funding articles, amendments to operating budget, golf course revolving funds, stuff like that, that Paul usually just touches on the night that we do our voting, is the Cranberry Bog Dam tree removal maintenance. We talked about having Dave McLaughlin come in and maybe discuss that process, and then also the town charter amendment regarding the Board of Health to 5 members, which I believe that's the select board or board of selectmen, depending on where we are in the approval process of the name. I believe you guys discussed that at your meeting on Monday. So having either Ken or someone else from the board come in, I don't know if you'd feel comfortable giving that presentation. I'd rather have Ken discuss it. Okay, yeah, just let us know. Theoretically, we're scheduled for next Thursday for that meeting, and then with a vote to follow that previous week. That would give us plenty of time to get the warrant article together. But let's play everything by ear. Let's target next week still, and then we can.
Dr. Lang is prepared to come in next week. He's definite.
Okay.
And you can put him first on the agenda. Prior to the Neshoba one, just, yeah.
We'll see. I'll flip a coin, maybe. I'll be as fits
Although
fair.
Neshoba did pick that date well in advance.
Well in advance. They did.
Wow.
They did target that date far in advance.
He said he didn't care.
He said he didn't care.
He didn't care. So.
Okay, all right. So that's kind of the schedule we're looking at, subject to change. Next, we have public comment, and I'm sure we have some public comment.
Making a habit of this.
Yeah, a bunch of things going on. Good evening. And stuff
Good
just
evening.
happened. I just got a notice 2 minutes ago, which may pertain something. So, 2 minutes ago, we just got an alert from the Massachusetts Division of Local Service, Department of Revenue,
Yeah.
that the Baker-Polito administration has announced an emergency order modifying the state's open meeting law. This suspends the requirement for public access to the physical location where a public meeting is taking place, provided that there are other means of access available. This includes the use of conference phone line for members of the public, social media or other internet streaming services, online meeting services, or methods of access. Additionally, the order relieves the requirement that a quorum of members be physically present at a public meeting. During this period, members may participate by remote or virtual means. So, and this just came in 2 minutes ago. In fact, I just forwarded it to the members of the Board of Selectmen as I was sitting there. Basically, we're in a very dynamic and unprecedented situation.
How long does it say that's good for?
Indefinitely at this
Definitely,
point,
okay.
until this happens. And that sort of goes to my next topic about town meeting itself.
Yeah.
I spoke to the moderator this afternoon about town meeting. At this point, we're in a wait-and-see process. I mean, I think that's the summary. I think John spoke to Sue Rosa, and I spoke to Sue Rosa, our public health director. I think it makes sense at this point not to do anything until perhaps the end of this month, so that we can see where we stand. It can go to a variety of extremes. If it's not safe to have town meeting before the start of the fiscal year, we expect that the legislature and the governor would enact special legislation. Most commonly what occurs in cities is what they call a 1/12 budget. So in other words, if there was no town meeting, and because right now the state law requires you to have a budget in place by June 30th, the start of the fiscal year. And so what happened if this would not take place, it'd be a 1/12 budget, meaning you would just continue as if the fiscal year didn't end, and you would have 1/12 of the prior year appropriation to move forward until such time that the town meeting could be called. The other extreme, so that's sort of the one extreme. The other extreme hopeful is that things stabilize and perhaps, we have town meeting as scheduled, or the intermediate stage would be we postpone to a time certain in May or June, or what have you. Certainly, hopefully before school lets out, before people leave for the summer. So, but in the meantime, you're progressing, I'm progressing. In fact, I was working on motions this week since my calendar opened up because all my meetings have been canceled.
How about that?
So I think we just keep going and then be prepared. I know other communities who have town meetings earlier than us. Like, for example, Westford, their town meeting is in March. I don't know what they're going to do. They may just postpone. I mean, when you really think about it, by charter and bylaw, ours is the last Monday in April. But, for all intents and purposes, if we did it after Memorial Day, it really wouldn't matter because it doesn't become effective. The important thing is to give notice out and get your book out. So that's on the town meeting side. So again, we're just taking it as it comes. Things are incredibly fluid. I just was looking earlier, the list of school closures is all over the place, keeps changing. I've not heard anything for Chelmsford at this point, but our neighboring towns have closed for a week. In fact, there was one community, I think it was Everett, that closed for a month.
Yeah.
So we don't, so there's 2 weeks, there's 1 week, there's 1 day. It's all over the place. Again, we're taking the direction of the Mass public health officials and the administration. There's a conference call tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock for municipal officials that was coordinated by the MMA. There's also issues of open meeting law, as you just saw, but other issues such as, what do you do if you have public hearings and meetings? And so, anyway, it's very fluid. I guess the best way to describe it. And today our situation was fluid. I mean, we all saw what the president was on TV with a press conference, or not press conference, an address to the nation, and then we saw this morning the markets tank and everything get canceled, from basketball, baseball, hockey, XFL, you name it. Your NCAA tournament, Maya canceled all its tournaments. They've also suspended anything for spring sports until the end of this month at this point in time.
Music stuff's canceled.
Anything, a cappella group, everything. Basically, if there's a meeting, just assume it's canceled, that involves any gathering of people. What we did today is, in consultation with Susan Gates for the Center of the Arts, that cultural resource, we closed it entirely. What was happening is people were self-selecting out, as you would expect. So attendance was dropping. And we just deemed at this point, let's just suspend all operations at the CCA until further notice. And then that followed by, what do we do at the senior center? Now, what we did is we suspended any social activities at the senior center. Again, people were selecting themselves out. Attendance was down, as you would imagine, because that's serving an at-risk population, elders. So what we did by midday is we basically just said, we're only going to operate for essential functions. Meals on Wheels, critical transportation services so that people can get to physicians, doctors, what have you, grocery shopping, or wherever they need to go, appointments, what have you. And then we also have an adult social day program where we're treating people with dementia and so forth. So those programs would continue. And again, the reason that people would go there is because there's no other option.
Yep.
Those are people who can't stay at home. So that's what we're doing there. But anything that's social, like, let's go play bridge or go, cards or have a lunch, that's all shut down because again, it's not essential and because of the risk that's posed. We're keeping the staff there to answer the phones, to serve the people they are serving, because we know people will be calling, looking for assistance, and also people may show up at the door unexpectedly as well. So that's what's happening there. I mentioned the schools I think Jay will have a sense tomorrow in terms of where things are going in consultation with the state. And then the last one is the library. Again, the library right now they've canceled their sort of program activities in terms of, gatherings. They've also put toys away that children would use, anything that really could be, contagious. But again, it doesn't predominantly serve the at-risk population, so we're keeping the library open for the time being until there's further direction from the state. Because again, it does provide a resource, both virtual, because we want to make sure that a lot of library service is not going to be done online. We want to make sure that those services are functioning and operational. Also, people, if they're going to that, need help. How do I do this? You can't just say, oh, it's online. So therefore, if the library's there and they can answer the phones and help people obtain those services, and also just if they want to come in and get materials, because one of the things that we're concerned about is that if all these people are sheltering in place or at home and so forth, and there's no activities going on in terms of, sporting or other television activities, what are these people going to do with themselves? And we don't want to be boosting our police force for responding to domestic calls. But people get on each other's nerves. People get on each other's nerves. And then if kids are home and kids home from college and everything else, so again, and again, the directions from the public health, for example, they've told the library, well, you don't have to sanitize every book that comes back and so forth. So they're trying to follow proper protocol. So that's what we're doing. We know the federal government has signed legislation providing funding to the states. Today, there was legislation brought to the State House to assist cities and towns. We're just doing things at this point, a prudent person method of what is it needs to be done. We serve essential personnel, and how can we continue to do that? And that's what we're going to do. By coincidence, we had audited replacement doors on some of the offices as a security means because of the whole, concerns of workplace safety. They happen to be installed yesterday and today outside of the Board of Health, accounting, community development. And so now they're really not only providing safety, they're also providing sanitary benefits because now the public is stopped at the door. So when you go, for example, if you go by John's office at the collector's office, you had the window. Well, now across from there where the Board of Health office is, you now have a Dutch door that Public Works and Facilities installed. Therefore, you're stopping people there. So now the risk isn't for the office to get contaminated because if you know that office is a very wide open space, people would gather, wander through, things are shut down there. So it helps us keep things sanitary, it also, and secure. So, I mean, things are just fluid. We're trying to get information out by all the means that we have, by our website, through social media, print media. We are talking to the local press and so forth. So, and this thing, it just changes almost hourly in terms of what's going on. Now, the other impact is the financial aspects of this. In terms of what does this mean for the budget going forward, it's very clear. We're in an economic crisis as well as a health crisis. The legislature is scheduled to enact the state budget, but they've canceled all public hearing and public travel because normally they would go around and hold hearings, regarding aspects. So we're monitoring that. But again, the prudent method, and I'm sort of glad that we are where we are with the budget, is we basically are almost funding our budget as if the fiscal year didn't end. And that's sort of appropriate because where it is now because we really are in a uncertain world. So in speaking to Darlene and John, we're confident we'll finish fiscal year, at this point, fiscal year 20 in the black by this June 30th. We're hopeful that by summer and into fall, what you'll see, maybe we'll see a rebound. That pent up demand may produce a boomerang, we don't know, or things could just continue to sputter. We just don't know, but I think every day is an adventure. I mean, nobody foresaw the market get down by the 10% that it did today. I think people were hoping for 5%. It was 10. We don't know. But anyway, we're staying on top of it. The good news is we were here last time, John and I, our finance director, John Souza, we're on schedule for that refunding because interest rates are at historic lows for issuing of bonds. John will appear before the Board of Selectmen at its next meeting a week from Monday to provide an overview of the program, and then he'll return at the following meeting in April with the negotiated sale and how it transpires. And again, we're talking significant savings. Again, it's just a prudent thing to do in this market is to look at the opportunities that are before us. So that's sort of where we are as a community. Again, all the other things we've noted and passed about, we're cleaning our facilities, more frequently. We're doing everything we can, and we're avoiding meetings if necessary. Meetings that can be done, but it's sort of the method of rule, as you evaluate. What do we do, and what's the choice of not going, and what makes the most sense. And so, for example, we have a meeting on the solid waste that Gary spoke about. Originally, that was a meeting scheduled here at 11 a.m. on Monday. It's now going to be done by conference call, and things that everybody else is doing in their personal life. So again, we're staffing to ensure the continuity of operations and payroll. Our town accountant is in a secure bunker in Florida, making sure that we can get payroll out tomorrow and weeks to go. But in all seriousness, we're continuing to, again, focus on essential services. And again, even in the event that there is some type of shutdown and so forth, we'll continue to be present, much like we would during a severe weather or other incident or crisis, in order that we can serve the residents. Obviously, on the police and fire and public safety side, they're taking the precautions that they can in terms of getting information in advance through dispatch, and also information through public health in terms of, is somebody in Chelmsford known to be quarantine in place, so therefore if they arrive there, what's the proper protocol? And again, we're not doing this by ourselves. They're in mutual aid and learning from other departments. So, for example, if it were possible, if there was a suspected case, they would ask the resident, if possible, can you come outside, when the first responders arrive, and put a mask on and those type of things that you heard before. So this, again, we're staying on top of it. Unfortunately, we have the guidance of our state officials. We have the guidance of legal counsel in some instances, and just the experienced management team that we have here to face what's in front of us. But at this point, again, we'll continue to move forward, and we'll be ready whenever town meeting hits. And if it's on schedule, that's great. But if not, we'll take the prudent course of action. What we are seeing already, though, is there doesn't seem to be an effort to postpone municipal elections. The feeling there is it's not a congregate gathering. There'll be precautions taking place in terms of people handling ballots and pens and so forth. But it appears that because there are some towns, again, who've got town elections coming up this month, the direction so far from the Secretary of State's office and so forth is to allow those to continue, and maybe encourage more people to vote absentee and so forth if they're concerned about coming out. But so that doesn't seem to be the problem. And then once we get past the town election cycle, then we'll focus on the town meeting cycle. And of course, in the middle of all this, we're promoting the U.S. Census as well, because that's an important effort. And interesting to see how those results will be skewed. You would not want to be the town of Amherst on April 1st. It's going to have a very small population that it typically would have on April 1st, given the universities closed, Amherst College and so forth. But we'll leave that to the census people and the Secretary of State and others to deal with. But we're
more people home to take it for here.
Exactly. So again, I just wanted to bring you up to date that right now we don't see any need for emergency funding in terms of supplemental at this point. I mean, we have some supplemental appropriations that we've been working on, but we're just taking it. Again, the only beauty of the weather that we've had is obviously we have funding remaining in snow and ice, and we anticipate. Again, I don't want to jinx anything, that we would sort of do somewhere on the lines of what we did last year, and put some of that money back into the roads, but also have it available for any unforeseen costs and challenges that arrive. So, again, I'll keep you updated if material events develop. And again, it's literally the last few days, it's just been moving in real time. And as we said, we expect we hit the peak and then it will ebb, and hopefully, things will move on. So
What's the best resource for people, if town is getting information now? What do you think is the best place for people to look? Would it be the town website?
Town website, and, yeah.
Which was just updated.
Everything, yeah, when we put it on the website, it jumps right to social media. So when you see it on the social media, it really comes from the website, and we're keeping that current. We have a new website that's mobile-friendly, it's visual.
It's nice.
And the links are there, so we're hoping that's a good way of getting information out. If it were to be a crisis situation, we would use the telephone, code red telephone notification system in terms of letting people know. You know, we are seeing requests for aid, and, you know, emergency management is gearing up to assist local hospitals and so forth to whatever may come, just to be prepared. Again, as everyone says, you want to do is be over-prepared and hope that it doesn't happen, than to have the other extreme. So that's where we are at this point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. All right. So, as he said, it's a fluid situation. I'll have to post by Tuesday, but we can discuss in the interim and see what happens and go from there. So currently, we're scheduled to have both schools in. We'll reach out to them in the next couple of days and see if that's still the case. I'll review that bulletin for the change in the open meeting law and see if there's anything that might make sense as far as that meeting is concerned. But we have some time, and heck, if the if the date changes on the town meeting, we will have a lot more time for me to delay writing the letter. So with that said, let's look at any further public comment. There are no press questions. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye. Stay safe.
Yeah, it was my cousin in Italy this morning. Yeah.